Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes. Now, today we're going to focus on B2B sales. So, if you're a B2B person who, like for me, I deal mostly with lawyers and doctors, and I get them to improve their marketing. I actually bought on an expert who does this for a living. His name is Josh Elledge. I know, I'm sorry I messed up your name already, but we'll keep on going. And see, that's the joy of these recordings. Sometimes you get them and they're perfect, and sometimes you make mistakes, and you just keep rolling. So,
Yeah.
Josh, I just want to welcome you here to the show, and I think my audience is going to learn a lot from you because you're full energy. I think you got more energy than I do, but I see you everywhere.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. Hey, and so Rob? What's your connection to? I see you wearing the Army sweatshirt.
My son's in the Army. Yeah,
Awesome!
he is a sergeant in the Cab Scouts. He's over at Fort Bliss in Texas. He's been in the Army for about 9 years. He's going to be a lifer, so he loves it.
Yeah. That's terrific. So I was in the Navy for 5 years. So, anytime I get the opportunity to connect with a family member or, someone who served, milspouse, I just want to say thank you because, everybody makes an investment when a family member, joins the military, because it's quite a disruption of normal life, and it's one of service.
Yeah. When I was younger, I wanted to be in the Navy. I took the ASVAB, got a high score, and they said, "Oh yeah, we want you." And so that I took the nuke test because they said, "Hey, we want you on the sub, we want you on the carrier."
Yeah.
I passed that, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna."
Yeah.
And they're promising me all this great stuff, and and the military is great at sales. They are.
You have to be.
They will. They will convince you to join, and then I took these tests that you have to take detect the number out of the dots, and apparently I couldn't pass it. I guessed one number, and they said, "Dude, you're colorblind."
Colorblind. Yeah.
See colors. I just can't see that. So I couldn't join.
My friend Brent and I went to the Navy recruiter the same day. We took our ASVAB the same day. We actually both did well in the ASVAB, both took the nuke test. Then we went for the physical, and there was something wrong with his back. And so Brent couldn't join. I joined. I decided to make that. I had no other options at the time. I mean, that was really the best. I came from a, kind of poor working class, Midwest family. And I had no way of paying for college. And I really looked at what the United States Navy had to offer. And it worked for me. Now, I got them to change because they put me in for nuke and promised me all these different promotions and stuff. After about a few weeks, I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to be involved in nuclear engineering. No, thank you. I don't want to live on a sub for 4 years or 6 years. So I eventually I got them to change my billet to a U.S. Navy journalist, which is a rating that doesn't even exist today.
Right.
But I was doing video news. I did that for 3 years in the Hawaiian Islands. And then my last year in, no joke, I was a DJ. That was my military job. And so I'm very grateful. But I will say that it was one that came with a lot of responsibility because when I sat down with the chief, this was in Adak, Alaska, and he said, "Listen, there's some things you need to know about this duty station. Number one, we've got no sun. So depression is a major issue here. MWR is very active here, but listen, and he actually said this. He goes, no lie, every winter we're going to have a suicide or two. Wow. And no pressure, but your work could potentially save a life, by ensuring that, that we're communicating and that we're, and that we keep we keep folks motivated about why they're doing what they're doing, and entertainment and all of that sort of thing, right? And so, that was. And I also got the opportunity to learn from a gentleman named Adrian Cronauer, who you may know that name. He was portrayed by Robin Williams in the movie Good Morning Vietnam, and it was at that moment when Staff Sergeant Cronauer came and spoke to our journalism class. Prior to that day, I thought, well, journalism sounds fun. I like, I don't really like writing, but I like the idea of maybe producing news and video, and certainly radio was the thing I was most excited about. But it was that afternoon that my view of what platform is completely changed. And it was that when we take to platform, Rob, you've got a podcast. You have an audience that loves you and appreciates you and is tuning in because
they love me.
Okay, so they tolerate you. And enough to keep listening. But yeah, that's the idea, right? Is that, when we take to platform, you have a moral obligation, a sacred obligation to serve that audience with your whole heart. And it's to put their needs first, not your own. Only to the extent that your desires dovetail with what the audience works, should there be any indication of, fulfilling your desires, right? So, so I recognized just how important that was, and I devoted my life to serving by using platforms. And it's Savings Angel. I'd started a number of businesses, my first 6 businesses, after I exited the military. I worked in corporate America for a couple of years too. But my first 6 businesses, eventually I made an exit. Some of them, they were pretty painful exits because I ended up losing a lot of money and, lost a home to foreclosure, bankruptcy. But eventually my 7th business venture became very successful. It was a 6-figure a month company that was Savings Angel. And that was a really, really fun ride. And, to go from not being able to pay your utility bill, to that kind of money and those kind of paydays, it was very humbling. And I'm so grateful for getting kicked in the teeth. I'm so grateful for failing, because it gave me the humility that I needed so that I could have the compassion for other business owners that may be struggling, that might be like, banging their head against the wall. I don't get it. Why am I stagnating? Why do I not seem to be able to get the kinds of results that other people have? It's not fair. Well, I get that. Like I've lived that. And so, and I'm so grateful that I had those experiences so that I could be more compassionate as I leverage and use platform.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of glad we started out talking about the military, because here's the thing: for anybody who's ever served, the process that the military takes you through, the questions, the forms, everything. It's a whole process. They do that because they want an ideal candidate. And as an entrepreneur, you should take that same process when you go through your client avatar to pick out that exact type of person that you want as a client. If the military has been doing this for 40 years or 50 years or 100, whichever branch you've been through, why can't you take some of those ideas, those concepts, and put it to use to get that dialed in client?
Yeah. So one thing, that I see a lot, and I should say, in my life today, right? I fell in love with podcasting back in 2007 when I launched Savings Angel. It was my primary means of content creation, aside from all of my media experience. So media, being on TV, writing a syndicated column, radio, all of the above, right? I've had over 2,500 media appearances, primarily through my work with Savings Angel, not including the podcast. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But what I found is that when you just keep showing up, that is the key differentiator. What is, a really good book on this, Atomic Habits by James Clear. What is the difference between a champion weightlifter and an amateur? The champion keeps on showing up when the amateur gets bored. Right. And it's very easy to get bored when you keep doing the same thing thousands of times, right? I've done 800 TV segments alone here in Orlando. And yeah, it's, I've done it before, nothing's going to change. I'm just going to do it again. But you keep on showing up, and there's something magical that happens when you stay in the game longer than what average people do. Can you, in sales, keep showing up in a positive way, truly putting other people's needs first? And if you'll keep on doing that, it's not complicated. Sales is not, revenue in business is not complicated. I'll break it down very simply. Revenue comes, if we're talking about account-based sales, revenue comes from closed sales, period, right? Where do closed sales come from? Closed sales come from, it's generally a percentage of your total number of sales conversations, right? And there are some things you could do to improve that percentage, but generally, the market is much smarter than you and I. The market will decide, right? So how do we have more sales conversations? Well, it's simple. You need to build more relationships. And in account-based big ticket sales, right, you just need to be networking at a faster pace. So if, let's say, out of 10 conversations with someone that would fit your ideal persona, 2 end up buying, well, you could talk with 10 people over the course of 5 months to a month, or you could talk to 10 people in a week. And chances are you're going to still make the same 2 sales. It's just like you could make your 2 sales in a week versus, over many months. You decide. So where do we put the focus? We need to put the focus on creating systems and creating an environment where we can network at a much faster pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, and I've shared this on my podcast before, is that, for years it was always the know, like, and trust. But, I threw a 4th one in, and it's, feel safe. You have to feel safe as a consumer buying from somebody else, or business to business. And once you feel that comfort level, that safeness, everything comes together. And I've noticed it through the pandemic. People were so beaten down by this virus. They were getting media thrown at them everywhere. But those companies who stayed in business made those customers feel safe, and they're the ones making all the money.
Yeah. And I'll argue today too that you can no longer, I don't want you to get confused, right? I am in no way advocating for a spray and pray way of doing business. That no longer works.
Right.
Why? It has to do with how people have evolved over the past, particularly 10 years, right? And so a really good book, it's called Marketing Rebellion by Mark Shaffer. He reveals what Fortune 500 companies know. And that is that consumers, and I've been studying and leading on this with Savings Angel for 15 years, consumers are not the same that they were 15 years ago. And the reason why is because we've been in this intense laboratory, we've been experimented upon in a way never before seen on Earth. And that is that we are exposed to over 700 different brand messages every single day, according to the American Marketing Association. And it's at a pace we've never before experienced. Okay, we didn't experience this in the 80s and 90s, but because of the internet, it's ad. Because of email, it's spam. Inboxes, spam. What do you think is going to happen to a population when you inundate it with stupid marketing from dumb marketers who ruin everything for legitimate good businesses? Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little stale. This guy's on his soapbox, obviously. But what you get is a hyper-resistant population that is walking around with their guard up like never before. We don't want to be sold to. So if you're still doing the old school spray and pray, running around like, it's like if you've ever been to a mixer and here comes this robo pitch sales guy, and you're like, it's like you want to wave your hand in front of his face and go, hello, is there somebody in there? Because as an empath, I feel ripped off when somebody, my first connection with them is they just go into pitch mode. I feel so insignificant to them that they would treat me so poorly. Whereas you haven't even taken time to know who I am. So my approach to media was always spend more time with fewer people, but make sure that they're the right people that you should be investing in, right? And the same thing in sales. Are you willing to invest into key relationships? Because if you will, then you're going to deepen those relationships and you plant seeds, and where you plant your seeds, not necessarily where you reap your harvest, but ultimately, I believe the end game for most of us should be deep, connected relationships with hundreds of people that are kind of like centers of influence, key individuals, people that may be our ideal customers, or they know people who are our ideal customers. Because when you can get to that point, you will never have to worry about where your sales come from again.
Right.
Promise you that. I've lived it.
And I tell my customers all the time. I said, look, social media it's great to build up your numbers, but focus on those types of clients that you really want to help, because they're the ones that are going to be referring you to other people just like them. You can't go to the bank and say, hey, look, I got 1 million followers. Who cares? They're not giving you any money. And that's why I don't like the false sense of TikTok and Snapchat, where you get these million views within 2 seconds after you launch your video, because it doesn't really give you any money.
Yeah.
I like, and I tell you, look, if I got one view on my YouTube video and it made me $10,000, that's all that matters.
Yeah. So there is something to be said, right? For, so for my podcast, The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, I've recorded, as of when we're recording this, about 1,300 episodes and some change. And so I don't get tens of thousands of downloads per episode. Right. Savings Angel, I used to, because it's a completely different play, right? So if you're B2C or you're doing like YouTube videos about comic book stuff or, films or like big pop culture stuff, yes, you're going to get way more views, but it's a completely different play. So would you rather, if you're selling B2B, be in front of, 50,000 comic book fans or 50 CEOs? It depends, right? I would say for most of us, if you're serious about just making sales, you probably want to be in front of the 50 CEOs. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So, we spoke about, you spoke about the Savings Angel. So why the progression into something different?
Yeah. So Savings Angel was an accidental company. Up My Influence was an accidental company. And I legitimately mean that, right? So what was Savings Angel? Savings Angel was the result of me not being able to pay my bills, me having unstable income, but yet I remember going through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that Dave does and says today. However, when I was going through and he was talking about, okay, well, you need to work out your spending plan. And so I'm going through and I'm like, okay, what do we spend? What do we spend? So I asked my wife, I said, hey, what do we spend at the grocery store on a monthly basis? And she said, I said, because I had two young kids at the time. And I said, what, maybe like $400 a month? And she laughed. She goes, are you kidding? We spend like $800-900 a month. And I remember if there was an opportunity for me to do a spit take, that was it. That's a lot of money. Like compared to like what, the money I made. Like just to feed a family of four, $800 to $900. And we were shopping at Aldi. We were shopping at Walmart. I mean, we were doing we were buying brand name stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's absurd. So I said, there's got to be a better way. Studied all the experts. How can you cut a grocery bill in half? There's two ways you can do it. Number one, you need to start growing all your own food. I had already tried that. I wasn't very good at it. Didn't have the patience for it. That's option one. Number two is you could start getting very smart about taking advantage of every conceivable discount, but you have to time your discount. So back then, what you want to do is you want to take coupons and you want to stack them on top of store sales, because if you could do that instead of paying, $3 for a box of Cheerios, you could very easily get Cheerios for 50 cents a box. Yeah, you can. Right. All you have to do is take the $1 coupon and use it when Cheerios goes on sale for buy one, get one free. That's it. And now you're getting your Cheerios for 50, 75 cents a box. You do that across everything that you buy on a regular basis. And that's how you take a $900 grocery bill down to, and I was down below $300. When I was really, really good at that. And so I thought, well, all I need to do is just database everything that I'm doing, put it on a membership-based website, charge $20 a month. And, I think at our high water mark, we had $6,500 monthly subscribers that were all paying us $20 a month for access to all that data. Now, it took a small army for us to database everything that we did, but, it was a great service. But then, when I get to this, right, is nobody is smarter than the consumer. Right. So eventually there was this, I don't know if you remember extreme couponing. That became a thing. And that's where we really skyrocketed. I mean, hockey stick growth, right? But then that eventually kind of died down. And so, as much as I tried to, reposition myself to the market, at the end of the day, trends come and go. And couponing was something that, a few years after extreme couponing, the consumers just kind of lost their interest in that. And that was industry-wide. That's just consumers across the board. Thankfully, one thing I know, and it sounds like you've had experiences like this too, Rob, where what you want to do is you always want to keep moving. Right? Always be out there. You don't want to be the car that's sitting in park, because it's hard to change direction when you're sitting in park. I had already, so Savings Angel, I unintentionally started, it was really me solving a problem for myself. And I thought, hey, wait a minute, maybe, other people would be interested in it. And it took a little while. It took a year before we started getting some good momentum. But eventually we did. So Up My Influence came about. I didn't do any advertising. So over $6 million in revenue with Savings Angel. I didn't spend a dime on advertising. I mean, maybe we boosted a couple of posts on Facebook and that was stupid. But really, I'm just not a big advertiser. All of our awareness that we generated was through media. So I'd approach a radio station, say, I don't have any money, but can I do a segment? And enough of them showed mercy on me that they put me on the air. They tried me out and I did a segment and it worked out. And, oftentimes we would rev share with them and that sort of thing if we had people that would buy. So it was just using remnant space and newspapers, that sort of thing. But yeah, so I got really good at that. And then in our local startup market here in Orlando, is that I would go and volunteer pro bono, military veteran-owned business owners, female-owned businesses, minority-owned business, it's basically any boards I could serve on, workshops, pro bono mentoring, and I would just go and work for free. And I was happy to do that because that feels good, to serve with no expectation of return. Well, here's what's going to happen. When you go out and you do that, people are going to take notice. And then, the other people I'd serve on boards with, they'd be like, hey, can I hire you for some media consulting? I'm like, I guess, and I was worried about practicing PR without a license, but come to find out you don't need one. They just care about results. So yeah, anyway, so that was the first iteration of Up My Influence. Yeah. And just real quick here, Up My Influence today is not the same company that it was at the beginning, because while we were doing media consulting, we developed an internal sales system that was unlike anything that I'd ever seen before, where we really took a Bob Burg go-giver approach, and using that, it allowed me unlimited access to my dream customers. Essentially, it was a blank check to build relationships and make friendships with anyone that I wanted to in the room. It just had to do with leading with enough value. So we systematized that in a way where Josh, I could talk with, 10, 15 of our dream clients every single week. Well, 20% of those people we ended up doing business with. Those are good numbers. So I just, I had one of my clients ask if we could do the same thing for her. I said, I don't know. Am I going to be practicing B2B consulting with that, without a license again? But yeah, she ended up making $175,000 in about 90 days. She was selling a $25,000 mastermind. And that really got the gears turning. I'm like, wait a minute here. It's like, I can make the same sale if it's and you'll see this like in big ticket sales, the same percentage of people, if you market it at $1,000 or $10,000, you're probably going to have about the same conversion rate.
The saying that I've been saying for years is the lower the price, the more hassles involved. And when you focus on trying to attract the low hanging fruit, they're going to give you the most problems. So there's the same effort to sell $100,000 package as $100 package. So why not just shoot for the stars?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, so I'm a big fan when it comes to pricing. I'm a big fan of outcome-based pricing, value-based pricing. And that is what I want as a consumer. That's what I want. I don't care how much, I don't want to know how much you make an hour, quite frankly, because I don't want to anchor to that. It's disruptive for me in a bad way. What I want to know is if you can help me make $100,000, does it make sense for me to give you 20? Yeah. So most success, once they get the momentum going, business leaders are just commonly looking for positive ROI opportunities. And if you can demonstrate that, especially if you can guarantee that in some way, then it's a no-brainer. And so that's a big clue. If you're an agency owner, how can you better guarantee or outcomes and results? Because if you can, and you can stand behind that, then you're going to find sales is going to be pretty easy for you. Right. It's not that everyone's going to buy; most won't. But the people that you connect with, they'll buy.
Right. And I never sell an hourly package. I always sell. I always sell. Based on the value of the package. Say,
absolutely.
Hey, look, this is what it's going to cost per month. And they're like, oh, okay. But if I say, well, it's going to cost, $100 an hour, they're going to that's more than
they're going to be watching the clock. Yeah. You don't want that anchor. You want them anchored to results. You as a service provider want to be focused on results. It has to be 100% focused on an outcome for your client. And if you can't demonstrate that, then you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to retool your offer so that you can. Some things you can't, it's inappropriate to guarantee, but other things you can. Right. For us, I can guarantee 10 high-level introductions month after month after month. And I'm willing to work as long as it takes to get our client to that point. And even if that means I end up working pro bono, when I should have, just to make good on that, I'll do that. Because I've done this long enough that I'm pretty good at what I do. Now, that said, when you have strong guarantees like that, you want to start being much more intentional about the clients that you choose to work with.
That's right. Yeah. Now, how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
Oh gosh, yeah. So listen, if you're rocking it in business, like you're B2B, you're doing 6 figures or more in business. First off, listen, congrats. I'm always looking for great case studies on our podcast, The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. Got a pretty big audience by now. I've got, 1,200 episodes or so, and a pretty big social media follow. I would love to celebrate you. That's number one. Number two is that if you are struggling right now with new conversations, I've put together, we're actually putting the finishing touches as of when we're recording this on a quiz that will ask you a series of questions. It's pretty thoughtful and it goes pretty quick, about 5-10 minutes. And I will tell you what your number one lead generation blocker is. Because again, revenue comes from closed sales come from sales conversations come from, you just need to be talking with more people. So I'm going to help you talk with more people. And in the quiz, I'm going to tell you exactly what's stopping that right now. Then I'm going to teach you for free. I don't have anything for sale at that point. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to get you talking with way more of your dream customers. And then at that point, it's up to you. I mean, if you're like, if you still want help beyond that, sure, you could talk to me and my team, and we could probably come up with some win-win way that we could work together. But that's entirely up to you. Mainly, I want you to stop drinking the guru juice of thinking that you can completely that you can completely automate high ticket sales, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they're lying to you.
Right.
That's not how account-based marketing works.
No.
There are some things you can do, at the early stages, but most high ticket clients don't want to have a thing to do with your sales funnel. They're way too busy.
Yeah.
Don't even think about selling them tripwire products or putting them through some robo automated process. They're not interested.
No, I always say you're one funnel away from a mental breakdown. You got to make the system easy, and you got to make it straightforward.
Please put that on a t-shirt.
So we're running out of time, but if you have a website that you want to share out.
I forgot to give the website. Okay, so let's harken back to my media training days. So yes, the website that I would love to help out pro bono. That's just what I do. Go to www.uppmyinfluence.com and you'll see everything that I talked about. Got a ton of free training and resources. Again, we're good, like on business, but happy to help out. Happy to help out.
And there you go, folks. So I want you to go visit Josh and go to uppyourinfluence.com.
My influence, not yours, not up yours, up my.
up my influence. There you go. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. This was fun. So adios.